want you to know that the mothership has landed.
It's DA on CBS Sports Radio.
What's up, my brother? I want permission to come aboard the mothership.
Asking permission to join a sports talk spaceship? Well, we're all a little crazy. The mothership has connected.
The mothership.
Let's come aboard.
Happy Thursday to you, North America. The mothership has connected. Welcome aboard. It's the 4-hour Chaos Theory Kegger. DA with you from the CBS Sports Radio studios in New York, broadcasting to affiliates nationwide and north of the border. Anchorage to Atlanta, Peoria to Pinehurst, Kalamazoo and Waterloo. Hey, you're on the air.
They listening, D.A. Everything we saying, D.A. Everything.
And we come to you live from the Rocket Mortgage Studios. Need to know what it takes for a home to fit your budget and your family? Rocket can. I always know, here we go, brodies, here we go. I always know it's going to be a good show when off the top, and I do my city-to-city thing. If my city-to-city thing, the one phrase that changes every day, catches Mraz's attention, and he looks head cocked to the side about 20 degrees and nods his head, okay. Denver to Delray did that today. So I feel like it's going to be a good show.
Little Mountain Love.
Okay, all right, okay.
You knew where the places are.
Coming up this morning here on the show, we'll talk Bama and Georgia. Tavares King was a standout wide receiver for the Bulldogs. He then spent a couple of years in the NFL. Now he hosts a podcast about the SEC. We'll talk about Georgia, Bama coming up on Monday night. Yesterday, we did the Alabama side with Howard Cross, a Super Bowl champion, and he was a Bama standout in his years there back in the 80s. Tavares King was at Georgia more recently, but going to be interesting to get his thoughts. He hosts Second to None, an SEC podcast. Get it? SEC, Second to None. He'll join us coming up here, hour number 4 this morning on the program. Also this morning on the show, a lot to get to. Aaron Rodgers beefing with a Hall of Fame voter. Reese Davis upset by the Kirk Herbstreit blowback. The Washington football team's rebrand. The secret might have been blown by them. The Bengals are sitting Joe Burrow. A-Rod wants a Manning cast. And players and fans going at it over their fantasy playoffs. All of that this morning here on the show. Should be good eating around here. Oh, okay.
Okay.
If you want to jump in on any of those topics, hit me up at 855-212-4CBS.
Woof.
855-212-4227.
Woof, woof.
Or on Twitter. DA on CBS. Again, that's
Woof, woof.
DA on CBS.
Woof.
There's a regular old dog pound around here.
Woof.
Everyone woofing. Sniffing and woofing.
Woof, woof.
Every morning, weekday morning, 6 until 10, we're sniffing and woofing sports.
Woof.
We talked yesterday about how Baker Mayfield may have played his last down for the Cleveland Browns. He is opting for surgery now, will not play in Sunday's game to wrap up the season. Now, the Cleveland Browns did extend him a 5th year at about $20 million, comes in at 19.8. However, they did not ever come to an agreement on a long-term extension. Before the season began, there were talks. Seemed like Baker Mayfield wanted to bet on himself in this year, thinking he could get even more money from the Browns after a good season. For him, that blew up in his face because, of course, it was a completely underwhelming season. He was injured. The team was out of sorts. They never got really on track. So now the Browns have a decision to make. Do you bring him back on the 1-year prove-it deal, see what he's got, Or do you part ways and move on? Even though he had a really down season, probably not impossible to trade Baker Mayfield somewhere with the quarterback desperate teams that always pop up every season. You're getting a guy in a 1-year prove-it deal. You know what? Worse places to be than a former first-round pick, number 1 overall, who's still in his 20s, who has gone to the playoffs, and you only got to pay him 1 year at $20 million to see if he's worth the extension. Not bad. So there might be a healthy, a robust market for his services. Who knows, though? Who knows? So there's a couple of teams that clearly are going to need an upgrade at quarterback in the offseason. Matt Rule's Carolina Panthers, speaking of a woof, that quarterback situation all year, total woof time.
Woof.
The New York Giants and Daniel Jones look like they're bringing back Daniel Jones, but that's anything but a certainty. The Seahawks, if they trade Russell Wilson, would be in the market for a quarterback. The Denver Broncos have been spinning the wheel of QBs for how long? And this year, not much different. Defense really good. Bridgewater okay at times. Not enough ultimately to make the postseason. Washington's quarterback situation was Ryan Fitzpatrick and Taylor Heineke. Fitzpatrick went down for the season early. Heineke was Heineke. And the Washington quarterback situation has been a woof as well this year. And no team has had more of a woof at QB under center than the Houston Texans since Deshaun Watson decided not to play for them. Yes, Davis Mills has shown at times moments, but are you really going to go into next year saying Davis Mills is our guy? Let's talk about these options and where Baker might be most favorable in terms of a landing spot. Let's start with your cold open.
Baker Mayfield.
Baker won't play in this last game. We're going to hold him out. He's going to get surgery scheduled and really as soon as possible so that he can, get back healthy as soon as possible. Based on all the information available to us, constant dialogue with our medical staff, with Baker, all those type of things, and throughout, have really felt comfortable based on all that information that he was able to play and those type of things. So obviously frustrated for him. But just felt like that was the right thing to do for right now.
I don't believe it!
The most amazing, sensational, dramatic, heart-rending.
It's DA's top story.
Here he goes!
It's your cold open.
So let's go over that list and start taking some teams out of the list, okay? Number 1, let's take the New York Giants off of the list of Baker Mayfield. Number 1, they're going to bring back Daniel Jones to see what they've got of their young guy that they invested a high-round first-round draft pick, a top 10 draft pick into, and still have on a rookie deal. They have to see what they have in Daniel Jones. Maybe they've got nothing. That's certainly possible. I don't think Daniel Jones will ever be very good, but they're going to run him back. Also, Baker in New York, bad combination. Get him out. Let's look at the New Orleans Saints. Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston. Jameis is a better QB at his best than Baker Mayfield is. The physical attributes that Jameis brings to the table, he's just a better passer with a better arm and better size than Baker. Simple as that. And when he was healthy this year, the Saints were in the playoff race. So you bring back Jameis Winston because he's a better option than Baker Mayfield. Scratch them off the list. There's the Houston Texans. I don't think Davis Mills will ever be anything of note, but you can't put Baker Mayfield in the middle of one of the worst organizations in football. That's not going to work. Losing is going to drive him batty. He's not going to be a guy that is able to withstand, I think, miserable Sundays, lots of losing, a young franchise, a young team. On a prove-it year, it's going to be terrible for him. He's going to feel like he's sinking his own stock. He's going to clash with David Culley. That's not going to be good. Take the Texans out of the mix as well. There are some connections to the Denver Broncos that you would say, okay, maybe that makes sense. However, John Elway and that organization have spun the wheel of QB so many times. Let's see if this guy works. Let's see if this guy works. Just digging up all of the corpses of the NFL. You can't do it again. I mean, that's just more of the same. So I would say no, you got to take the Broncos out of the mix as well. I think that leaves 3 teams on this list that are at least intriguing. Washington, Seattle, and Carolina. I would put the Carolina Panthers in this mix because, again, good defense, elite running back, a team that thinks it should be farther along in this development than it is, but it's being held back by QB. Even as down as this season's been for Baker Mayfield, he's better than Sam Darnold, and he's better than Cam Newton. So it is an upgrade. I just think Matt Rule's, I think he's wasted too many bullets at this point in time. I don't think you get another, well, let's try this guy. Because if Baker doesn't work out, you're in the same boat a year from now, where 1 year you've wasted again, and you're not anything closer to figuring out your solution on a guy who's a reclamation project probably for you this coming season. So I don't think the Panthers can afford to go there. Leaving us the Seahawks and Washington. If the Seahawks trade Russell Wilson, you could do worse than Baker Mayfield. Although I think if you're going to trade Russell Wilson and get back a whole bunch of draft picks, I would think you want to establish a reboot and a rebuild, and that includes a young quarterback. One drafted, I would think. I mean, if you're going to rip the whole thing up and you're going to collect all these draft picks, does it make sense to go with a 5th-year QB on a 1-year deal? Not quite sure. But you could make the argument, hey, it's a veteran team. They've got decent talent. They were in the playoffs just a year ago. This is a squad that might not need much fixing, especially with an infusion of good draft picks. But I ultimately think the best landing spot for Baker Mayfield is Washington. And here's why. They already have a defense that's the strength of the team. They already have some okay offensive pieces like Terry McLaurin. They have an established head coach in Ron Rivera that's not on the hot seat. And there is not a huge pressure for that team to make the playoffs, go deep in the playoffs, etc. Right now, they're still changing the culture. Now, that could be a weird combination where you're asking Baker to help you change the culture, although he did help do that in Cleveland. But I think there, you're not worried about a head coach coaching for his job. You're not worried about the here and the now as much as the future. Yes, it's getting deeper into that rebuild, but still, it's not a do or die year in 2022. You've got the defense, you've got some pieces, and Baker is absolutely an upgrade over Taylor Heineke. He is. I mean, Heineke's been fine in spurts, but even as limited as Baker is, he's better than Taylor Heineke. I think that's the play. Because if Baker goes there, and let's just say they win 10 games next year, not out of the realm of possibility. Washington wins 9 or 10 games. They're in the playoff hunt. Maybe they make a wild card. The defense helps out Baker. The run game helps out Baker. Ron Rivera helps out Baker. Rivera says the right things. The team kind of understands its own limitations as well. I think that's the play. So I said this yesterday. I do think both parties probably need a fresh start in Cleveland, the Browns and Baker. I think there's a series of teams that will at least kick the tires on him. I think Washington makes the most sense in getting him and putting him in a situation where he could potentially succeed. 855-212-4CBS or on Twitter, DA on CBS. When we come back, sound check, your best audio of the day. And speaking of Ron Rivera, we'll hear an interesting take on what he finds interesting. Also, one of our colleagues here on CBS Sports Radio trying to pull us apart as a network by saying who follows who on Twitter. Mm-hmm.
I'm on Twitter or Facebook right now.
And our friend Adam Beasley from the Pro Football Network, NFL Insider, gets put on blast on the NFL Network for too much drinky.
How many beers ago? Probably 1,000.
Coming up next, DA, CBS Sports Radio.
CBS presents this program in color.
An educated person can't think he's going to get a recruit by strippers coming in.
They can fire you, but they can't eat you.
And they run through our ass like through a tin horn, man, and we could not stop them.
The audio you need to hear. It's DA's Soundcheck.
Remember, you can watch the show every single day at watchda.com. That's also mobile friendly. Check us out on your phone. That's right. Watchda.com, available on your phone. Also, you can watch us on Twitch. Go to the CBS Sports Radio channel on Twitch to watch and chat alongside other D-aliens. We begin with Ron Rivera. So what exactly are things that he finds interesting?
Giants coach Joe Judge kind of took a couple shots at your organization the other day and brought up the fight on the field, referred to it as a clown organization. I'm curious what your response to that would be.
Well, it's interesting. It is, and again, I'm not going to respond to something, that's interesting.
Wait a second, what? I'm not going to
respond to something, that's interesting.
I'm not going to respond to something that's interesting? Boring questions only, everybody. I only want to talk about boring things. Let's talk about train schedules, perhaps the weather. I'm looking for mundane topics. Math. Anybody got a math question here? Nothing interesting. Please. Remember, Joe Judge was the guy that said we don't have people fighting each other on the sidelines as a defense of why things are fixed in New York, why things are heading in the right direction in New York. And now he's playing Washington, and Washington was the team that had teammates fighting on the sidelines.
I'm not going to respond to something, that's interesting.
I don't want to talk about things that are interesting these days, okay? So hopefully you guys understand that for the next 3.5 hours. It's only boring topics. The most boring, okay? I'm thinking about, like, the Kings' depth or whether or not the Ducks' power play is good enough for the playoffs. That's kind of what I'm focusing on over the course of the next few hours here. Now, we did the story yesterday where the Arizona Cardinals locker room might be going through a little bit of a tiff because Chandler Jones wanted Kyler Murray to follow him. Kyler Murray hasn't followed him on Twitter, so Chandler Jones unfollowed him because Kyler Murray wouldn't follow him back. Of course, here I am trying to unify this network, trying to bring everybody together. And here's Zach Gelb at night trying to rip us all apart.
Go log on to Twitter right now, and let's see if DA follows you. And also me as well. So I'm going to his Twitter, DA on CBS. Oh, wow. DA does not follow me. Now, DA is only following 844 people. I think I could be, let me be fair here. I'm not following DA.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. I thought I was following DA. I'm
so
stunned
you
by
must
this.
have unfollowed him at some point.
Yeah, I probably did.
Controversy.
I was probably Chandler Jones in that moment.
Wow.
I'm glad he caught himself there because Zach was looking to make me look like I was above following people. And instead, he showed the cards. I'm glad he did that. He was trying to stir the pot. Oh, let's see if DA's too high and mighty, won't follow other people in the network, and then boom, blows up in his face because he's not following me. And you want to know why this doesn't matter? Because who cares who's following who?
Woof, woof.
I mean, I like Zach. He does a good show. I don't know whether I should be following him or not, but even if I'm not, what's the big deal? And people in the industry get so whacked out. Why are you not following me? I'm following you, this, that, and the other thing. You're like, let's stop with the high school stuff. I don't know. I don't pay attention to it that closely. Okay? I know I follow Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter for NFL news, Adrian Wojnarowski for basketball news, and Mraz for the Fat Diary update. That's what I'm looking for in my timeline.
Wow.
That's what I'm looking for. If anything, I'm shocked I'm not following Ryan Hickey, his producer. I like Hickey. Hickey's a funny guy. I find him very enjoyable. He is just one of the most pleasant people I've ever worked with. Ryan Hickey never seemingly has a bad thing to say about anybody. He laughs at all my jokes, even behind the scenes. He's handsome. He's well dressed. He seems well put together. He was a walk-on at Penn State playing football, even though I don't know if he ever got to play. Did he?
I don't think he got to play.
No plays?
No, I don't even think he was allowed to travel to road games.
But did he get into a play in Happy Valley?
No. Practice, that's it.
Okay, because we practiced. Yeah, he's a pleasant guy. He's just I feel like he could be walking down the street and it's a rainstorm and he's just whistling.
He's co-hosted this show on a fill-in basis.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Okay, so on this point here, guys, as Zach just mentioned, I am following 844 people. So I don't know if that's select.
Wow.
But it's something. It's not everybody, okay? It's not everybody. Who do you assume, Mraz, follows the most people out of the four of us? Me, you, Bogish, and Bellotti. Who follows the most people?
I'm going to say Bogish.
Okay, any reason why?
Well, he's worked in a lot of different places, still with the play-by-play. Fordham, he probably knows a lot of college kids. Maybe he's following them. I don't know.
A lot of college kids? What do you
I don't know. He's doing the Fordham stuff. Who knows?
And he's following the students?
Yeah.
Well, you mean the players?
No, like the up-and-coming broadcasters in Fordham and stuff like that.
How many up-and-coming broadcasters do you think they are to flesh out?
Just one avenue of people he's following.
All right, but what could that be? 10 broadcasters?
Who knows? People involved with Delaware. He's got a lot of different tots here.
Okay. All right. And who do you think follows the least out of the four of us?
I would say probably Pete the Body because he's a little more snooty than the rest of us.
You think he's snooty?
I do.
Thank you.
Pete takes that as a compliment.
I do.
Okay. Okay. Well, you'd be right on Bogish. He follows the most out of all of us.
Okay, see, my college kid idea wasn't so off base.
Yeah, I don't think it's because he follows a bunch of college kids. But who's the most selective? I'm the most selective. Okay, here's the tally. I follow 844 people. So look, there's just not a lot of fat on the bone there. You know? So that's why Zach probably doesn't make the cut. It's a very selective list. Mraz is next at 902. So you follow 60 people more than I do.
Okay.
Pete follows 946. So he's about 100 more than me and about 44 more than you.
I'm looking to cut that list down.
You're going to cut it down.
100 wrestling accounts besides what we follow.
That's right.
And Bogish with an astounding 2,816 follows.
How do you even see anything in your timeline at that point?
That is 3 times as many as you follow, Mraz. More than 3 times as many that I follow.
I don't understand how you see what you need to see in your timeline when you do that.
I'm going to ask Bogish about this once we wrap up sound check because I want to know if it's just all college kids that he's following. Finally, here's Mike Garafolo, NFL Network, NFL Insider. Our friend Adam Beasley had the story about the tie. If the Raiders and Chargers get a tie or decide on a tie on Sunday night, and earlier in the day, the Jaguars would have beaten the Colts, they're both in the playoffs, the Chargers and Raiders, meaning would they agree to a tie?
What I like to do on this show,
I like to give credit to reporters that break news and bring us topics to talk about. I also like to lay blame at the feet of those who bring up ridiculous scenarios. So I'm talking to you, Adam Beasley of Pro Football Network. He's a buddy of mine. I told him to tune in. So, by the way, don't take me seriously here, but I'm going to lay it on him. You hear what Brandon Staley's talking about? Respect. Integrity. Why don't you try having a few of those for the game instead of bringing us this cockamamie scenario here, my friend? You should have seen Beasley a couple of years ago in Napa after the Super Bowl in San Francisco with his wife just going up and down the valley. It was like a tornado up, and it was incredible. Anyway, that's Beasley for you.
I mean, that's a low blow. NFL Network. These are NFL Insider crimes. NFL Insider on NFL Insider crime. I don't think that the Raiders and Chargers would ever agree to a tie, nor do I think they should. I know we debated this yesterday on the show, but neither here nor there. It's not up to Adam Beasley to not bring up this really super interesting hypothetical. So the Bees does it, and he just gets railroaded by how much wine he drinks in Napa Valley? How fair is that? I will say, I've had a few nights with Adam Beasley. He and I go back quite a ways. In fact, we were in college together. And the Bees is one of the greats when it comes to the nightlife. One of the greats. But am I going to bring this up as a reason to knock his reports? And I know that Garofalo is being sarcastic there and tongue-in-cheek, but I feel like this is a low blow. I feel like we have to defend him. Beasley was just on the other day with us on the show talking about Tua Tagovailoa and other stuff around the NFL. He's excellent at what he does. I can't just bring up the fact that he could probably plow through a 30 rack in 2 hours and still be standing for more wine to the end of the night. It's not up to me to say. Shame, shame. This is getting ugly out there. And that's your sound check. All right, so Bogues, 2,800 follows. You follow 2,800 people. How many of those would you estimate are college kids, as Mraz suggested?
Yeah, I would say probably somewhere around, 2,750. So that's like probably 97% of them are like 23 and younger.
So you're just less discerning about who you follow.
Yeah, and I've gotten heat from the wife over Facebook too. Like there's a lot of people on. I say yes to everybody on Facebook for the most part, and apparently I click follow too frequently on Twitter, but I do think I have significantly slowed it down. I don't know if you can check how where my followers came, but I think there's only been a handful in recent memory, and I do overfollow news people. I probably don't need all 7 Lions beat reporters. I could probably pick one of them for my Lions news. And there's definitely too many like Bravo celebrities involved in this list as well. Okay. But I think the good chunk of it are legitimate follows.
So you're a people pleaser. Is that you want to make people feel good by following them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for too. Like, if a listener's like, "Hey, can you follow me back?" Like, what's the big deal? I'm also good on the mute button. I don't know how many people I actually don't are actually not in my feed anymore because of whatever. I don't have the heart to dump them all together. You just mute them so they think you're still there, but you don't need to see their nonsense.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because did you see this happening on Twitter yesterday, guys, that once we were talking about this, Rob of the 321 was trying to point out that we don't follow him or most of the show doesn't follow him on Twitter?
Why would we?
Rob of the 321 tweeted, DA, I understand this whole follow thing. I follow you, Mraz, Pete, and Bogues are the only one out of all of you who follows me. I'm more upset about Pete the Body than Mraz. # who follows who. Now, Ryan, one of our listeners, Coach Ryan, another D-Alien, said, I'm trashing you, Rob, for complaining about not being followed. # beat. Now, Rob says, I'm not complaining, I'm just making a point.
What's the point? Why does Bogish follow?
Well, because Bogish, he just admitted it. He's a people pleaser. He's even following listeners.
9 Lions beat reporters.
But here's the problem, and we love our listeners. You can't even count the amount of listeners, great listeners we have. You follow Rob, then you got to follow all of them, and then you're missing a Woj bomb because I got Rob in a 321 tweeting about Lions players eating Snickers. I mean, what are you talking about?
Well, it also stands to reason that Rob in the 321 has to be interesting enough to follow.
He's not interesting enough. He's not and by the way, he thinks he's a great help to the show. He tags me on Instagram last night on the NHL ref with the fighting thing going, guys, this would be a great sound check. Hello, Rob. We just used that 12 hours ago, so you're not even a help to the show, you dope.
Is it a problem that Rob the 321 thinks he's important enough that we all should be following him?
Yes, it's a problem. It's kind of a mental issue for him.
It's a mental issue.
Yes, it's a mental issue. And it's not meant to disrespect him. It's just, why would we follow you? What do you bring to the table for us? And by the way, he doesn't have to follow me. If he's insulted by that, there's zero reason for me to follow Robin at 321. Zero. Might be a nice guy, does a decent impersonation here and there. I'm thankful that he's a diehard listener. Ultimately, I'm not interested in what you have to say in life.
Here's the problem. You can't bellyache about people not following you. That's just the worst part about social media. It's the biggest Schwartz move of all time. It's just, and now Rob, you can't complain about Schwartz and you can't rip Schwartz because you're doing a Schwartz.
Absolutely, he is.
This is the most Schwartz thing you could do, is bellyache about other people not recognizing you on Twitter, social media. It's not even important.
And it's all about the same reason Schwartz complains and complains and complains that he's not verified, even though he basically followed more people than followed him, is the same reason Rob wants us to follow him. It's so that when he's hanging out with whoever he's hanging out with, whoever gives him the time of day in life, he could turn to them and go, look who follows me on Twitter. You know that DA guy? He follows me on Twitter, when the person he's telling doesn't even care that DA's following him on Twitter.
Probably wouldn't even know who I am, whoever he wants to brag to. So he's using...
He's hanging out with him, too.
He wants to use us for Twitter clout, you think?
Yes. He wants to be able to brag, I have somebody with a blue check mark that follows me. Look how important I am. Wait, how important are you? You're dumping a bunch of Lions glasses in a bin.
The issue is... I mean, Rob, if I'm not following Gelb, well, what do you expect? I mean, come on. And again, if you don't follow somebody, it shouldn't be taken as some sign of disrespect. It's just not that important.
I think it should be taken as motivation. It should be taken as motivation to do something on Twitter that people will want to read.
There's that too.
You know, there's millions of Twitter handles out there. You got to do something that people want to read. That's just how I look at it.
Yeah, but you know what? If you're tweeting what you like to tweet, right? And I tweet a lot of food stuff, Giant stuff, and people don't follow me, I'm not offended that you're not interested in what I have to say, and I'm not going to pretend I'm somebody I'm not just to gain more followers because that's important to me. Why is that important to people?
I guess it makes them feel popular. I guess it makes them feel important.
I hate... Look, I say this with the kindness of my heart. Rob in the 321, in all seriousness, needs to get a life. He needs to get a life. I am happy that the show is an extreme hobby. I am happy that he seems like a good family man. But ultimately, go collect some Lionel train sets or something, Rob. Like
you always fall back on that as a hobby.
Just
the
like
train set
or
hobby.
some trading cards. Like do something else, but be consumed with who you know on or what you got going on social media. I mean, he makes Upside Down Mike look like the hardest worker in the world.
I just think it's fine. It's. I don't know his hobbies. I don't know his personal life.
His hobbies. This show 24/7.
Well, we have to appreciate that. We have to have great gratitude for that.
I love that he's a fan of the show. But just because the show is your consumption 24/7 doesn't mean that now I have to feel obligated to follow you on Twitter. It's bad enough I've got him in my DMs. I mean, he doesn't stop with that. I mean, with all due respect, Rob, I didn't even wish my own mother-in-law a Happy New Year for 6 days. I don't need you at 12:01 in the inbox.
Ooh, I didn't even get that, and I follow him.
Me neither.
I don't even know if you get the drift.
Okay. All right. So we appreciate his loyalty a great deal.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
And sometimes sometimes he sucks. Let's be honest. Like, there are times where, as good a fan and listener he is, he brings nothing to the table even when he suggests stuff for the show.
I appreciate it.
Like, when you suggest stuff we already did on the show, you suck. Like, stop.
Well, he's also most upset about Pete not following him. Pete, how would you respond?
I apologize for that. But I am in a mode. I'm actually looking at it right now. I'm in a mode of condensing who I follow.
Yeah.
Because you know what?
It gets bloated.
It gets bloated. Like, there's some people on here that I should not be following. Like, I don't know why. I got Steve Martin on here. Like, I like Steve Martin. The jerk was great, but I don't know if I should be following him. You know, like, there's some people on this list I gotta cut down. So
this also began trying to knock me for being slutty on Twitter, and Sean just yelled how much Rob sucks.
It also began with me saying that I'm trying to unify everybody at the station, and Gel was trying to rip everybody apart. And of course, it spiraled into us trashing everybody.
Yes. Woof. And by the way, you can be a good guy and suck at the same time.
Okay, those two things are not mutually exclusive.
Right. Just because we're saying that about Rob doesn't mean like we think he's a bad person or not. I mean, he isn't interesting, but not interesting. Like, he can be a decent
good try,
human
Sean.
being and just, it's good. We're good here.
All right. Well, a kind sir, Andrew Bogish, is our headline this morning. Mr. Bogues, good morning.
Guys, the Nets are 1-0 when Kyrie Irving is eligible to play. His delayed season debut came last night in Indiana. The Nets fell into a 19-point hole before beating the Pacers 129-121. Kyrie scored 22 in 32 minutes, and Kevin Durant loved every moment of it.
It was amazing to have him out there. I mean, I just missed his presence around the locker room, his energy, his vibe around the team. And then on top, I mean, then his game is just so beautiful.
Durant scored 39 as Brooklyn snapped the 3-game slide. Kyrie goes back to missing games tomorrow when the Nets host the Bucks, who have dropped 2 in a row, 117-111 of the Raptors at home last night. Giannis did not play because of a non-COVID illness. The Jazz fought off the Nuggets in Denver, 115-109 for a 10-game road win streak. The Heat, 115-109 winners in Portland. Jimmy Butler and Damian Lillard missed that one with injury, and the Spurs got a 99-97 win in Boston. Antonio Brown says the Bucks forced him to play Sunday despite a serious ankle injury. Bruce Arians cut him on the sideline when Brown said he couldn't play anymore, and now the team wants him to go along with their mental health storyline. Brown's statement adding the ankle issue needs surgery. Novak Djokovic now in a quarantine hotel in Melbourne and has filed a legal challenge to yesterday's decision from the Australian government canceling his visa. Djokovic might have gotten the okay from the Aussie Open to play without being vaccinated for COVID, but that did not get him entry into the country. And men's college hoops, number 11 Iowa State surviving number 25 Texas Tech 51-47. The Red Raiders had only 5 scholarship players because of COVID and injury. DA, back to you.
Thank you, Bogues. What's interesting about Rob of the 321, this is his Twitter profile. Okay, Miraz, you ready? Hashtag DAlien, dubbed by Bogish as the DA show's, quote, most prolific tweeter and DMer.
Oh, you can't put that in your profile.
Isn't that a compliment to us?
It is a compliment to us, but that means in life, like not proud father, husband, whatever you do for a living, that like your goal in life is what Bogish dubs you on the DA show? Bogish dubs me as a lard ass. Am I putting that in my profile?
Well, I didn't dub you that.
I dubbed myself that, but you've
Yeah, the Fat Journal dubs you that.
Okay. Well, we're off and running this morning here on the show. When we come back, speaking of annoying things that happen on social media, how about fans telling players about their fantasy teams? We've got a story on that next. We'll jump into your phone calls as well, as we were talking about Baker Mayfield and best landing spots for him in the offseason. This is the DA Show on CBS Sports Radio.
It's the DA Show on CBS Sports Radio.
51 minutes past the hour. DA with you here on CBS Sports Radio. Thanks so much for joining us. Listen to us on all of our terrestrial affiliates nationwide and north of the border. Also on Sirius XM, channel 158. One of the things that is just the most annoying thing about social media is fans talking to players about their fantasy teams. Look, players are knowingly joining social media to make themselves more available to the average person. And that availability is cool. It's cool when somebody responds to you. You don't have to be followed. They don't have to follow you. But if they're interacting, responding, that's cool. And it helps the athlete build a brand and build exposure and build a fan base. Totally cool. When you come at players because you're angry about their performance, okay, they signed up for some of that. You better not make it threatening. You better not make it violent, because then you've definitely crossed the ethical line. You're the loser, not them. But the worst of the worst is the fantasy people. The fantasy people that complain directly to the players that they lost their fantasy league or they lost their fantasy week because of the player. It is so self-indulgent that this guy who has built his entire life around sweating over football, killing himself over running the right routes, wanting to get that next contract, doing what the coaches tell him, eating right, drinking right, doing this, training, practice, games, throwing his body on the line, getting crushed by safeties and linebackers in front of thousands of people, answering questions in front of the media, this, that, and the other thing, that he would then have to worry about your fantasy team. That, oh, because you started him instead of another guy, you lost $500 in your fantasy team, or even less, that you lost your week because of it. And it happened again. A.J. Brown posted something on social media, wide receiver Titans, had nothing to do with fantasy or anything. In fact, he was just talking about his team and about how they dominated the Dolphins last week. And some dude says, yeah, they passed the ball to you 2 times and you lost me my fantasy championship. And A.J. Brown had the best response ever. I'll read that coming up here next. DA, CBS Sports Radio.